I'm going to say something that I've never said before, and I will probably never say again.
Please do.
I'm glad that we're getting a whole bunch of crappy live service games.
We just defeated the Emperor Bullblacks. Now it's time to recover and have a chat. With me today, I have Gerardo, Drift Wizard Extraordinaire.
Greetings.
And me, I am Hunter, and I am also here. So we feel like Nintendo's activity in the remaster space has been excellent, at least that's my take, and it paints the vision for a brighter future as far as remasters on the Switch goes.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's nice to see Nintendo bringing back some of their old games, and it makes me hopeful that they'll keep doing this, especially because most of the ports we're seeing this year, the remasters, are GameCube games.
Yeah.
And right now, GameCube games are fairly high in price on the secondhand market. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to see them bringing these back because it makes them more accessible, especially to newer gamers that like don't have a GameCube.
Yeah, and I think that as far as like game design goes, I think that GameCube was the generation where we started to see game design that was a lot more consistent with modern day game design. Okay. I feel like N64 and prior was the industry was starting to figure itself out a little bit. N64, there were some game design principles that were kind of set in stone. But really, for the most part, a lot of GameCube games could release today with better visuals, and it would be perfectly fine.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we saw that specifically with Metroid Prime Remastered.
Yeah, exactly.
That game got a lot of praise right after release just for how good of a game it is in general, along with how good the remaster looks of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that game just in general looks like a completely different version of Metroid Prime. I know that you don't really consider it a remaster. I feel like you're kind of in between remaster and remake with that one.
Yeah, but definitely.
Like, it's widely considered to be a remaster, and all they did was change the art, but it feels like a completely new game.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was going to say. It feels like a new game.
Yeah. Yeah, even like the moon in the background of when you first land the ship, like everything about it. It feels good, like a lot of GameCube games do. Pikmin 1 and 2, also great examples. Pikmin 1 could release today by like an indie dev or something, and that would just be like a really cool, weird take on an RTS that people would just enjoy playing even today.
I would hope so. I like that game.
And I think that Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is a little bit of a different story because it was made for mobile gameplay in mind, with the mission structure definitely being more piecemeal.
Yeah, that one's interesting. I haven't played that one, but I know I've heard a lot of people have said that that's probably the worst game in the series. So yeah. I'm a little surprised to see it. So I'm wondering how this is going to go.
I didn't know that it was like the worst game, but it's definitely different from 1 and 2 because, again, the structure is different. The idea is that you're playing through like a mission on the go, kind of. There is a lot of that in like the DS and 3DS era. Like, I think that a lot of GBA games weren't really made with that design philosophy in mind. They're just kind of like older game design that could just work on the go. I think that a lot more of the DS and 3DS games were made with like, this is a part of a level that you can beat in like 30 minutes to an hour or something, while you're driving on the road trip or on a lunch break at work or something.
That's true. And it also really helped that the DS had like a sleep mechanic.
Yeah.
I know there were some Game Boy Advance games that had sleep mechanics built into the game itself, like Metroid Fusion, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But Metroid Fusion's also not like... It's like a SNES game. It plays a lot like Super Metroid, right? So it's more expansive. It's not really like built specifically for a handheld experience, in my opinion. Still a fun game, though.
Whereas like Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon was definitely one of those 3DS games that was designed for the 3DS. I didn't know that people hated it so much. I thought that people liked it for the most part. I thought
It
that
might
there was
not
a
be
really
hate.
big push to get it on the Switch.
Again, I didn't play it. It might not be hate. It might just be it's the least good one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's just what I've heard
That makes
from
sense.
people that have played it. I think he's not here right now, but I think I've heard Brad say that.
Okay, I think I might have heard him say something similar. Yeah. So I think that that's kind of cool. Like we're just seeing a lot more like remastered games coming to the Switch with updated graphics. Basically, the games are still intact the way that they originally were. I think that some redesigned stuff with Luigi's Mansion just to because the dual screen functionality was kind of weird. But for the most part, it's untouched. Same with Pikmin 1 and 2. They made it like widescreen and stuff, and they upres some of the art. They got rid of the Duracell battery. That
Yeah, that was a
unfortunately
shame.
that what a massive shame, that product placement there. But other than that, this basically untouched
It goes into a different
mechanically.
argument there, or a conversation there.
I
Does,
don't think.
does does product placement have a place in games? But
Well, we Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and there was, what was it, BMW or something,
the Mercedes,
or Mercedes? That
I
was it. Yeah.
I love that. It's funny, but
I don't think that the Duracell thing was. I actually don't know if it was on purpose or not. I don't think that
okay.
Duracell paid them to do it.
In the case of Mario Kart, it does break the immersion. I think it's purely I like it just because it's funny. But in the case of Pikmin, I think it helps with the immersion because you're supposed to be like you're on this mysterious planet, but it's actually like Earth, and having it be a real brand battery makes the game feel more like you're on like a real Earth.
True. I think that they also could have just made it black and copper, and then it not say Duracell, and I don't think that it
True.
would have changed anything.
You'd still be able to tell what it is. That's true.
Yeah. I think that for Mario Kart, I don't play Mario Kart to immerse myself in the experience. It's a multiplayer, it's a party game. I
Yeah.
don't really think of myself as in the world. I'm not
Yeah.
driving on the tracks. Whereas if
Yeah.
I'm like into Pikmin, I have all the lights turned off. I feel like I'm like in the world a little bit.
You telling me that you've never been driving down the highway and had a blue shell just totally just mess you up?
No, never.
Huh.
Is that an experience you've had?
No
But kind of talking
comments.
talking about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I think that that's one of those things that, like, for a while in the beginning of the Switch's life cycle, we were talking about, oh, what's the next port they're gonna do? What's the next like deluxe port? Like they did a lot of Wii U ports, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Oh yeah.
New Super Mario Bros. U, Pokken came pretty quickly. Pikmin 3 Deluxe is one of the later ones. We got Tropical Freeze, like all these different games, Captain Toad. A lot of games that were released on the Wii U and the 3DS for that matter were all being brought over to the Switch. Like the brand new system. And now we're kind of running low on Wii U ports to bring over. I think that a lot of people were asking for, like, Tokyo Mirage Sessions to come over, and like 3D Mario, Super Mario 3D World, and like all those things. But then now that they did all of that, I don't hear the arguments for more ports anymore. And so I think for their legacy content, they were looking to bring in like the remaster. It's kind of like the new wave of that.
Yeah.
Especially since the main idea behind, in my mind at least, for the Wii U ports was the Wii U, pretty cool game system, but no one owned one. And so, they weren't, like, how else were they going to play Tropical Freeze? One of the best designed 2D platformers ever, in my opinion. Like, how are people going to play that? They weren't going to play that. So the only
Yeah.
option was to bring it over to the Switch, which has a much wider audience. And if I had to guess, I don't know, but if I had to guess, all of the Switch versions of those games probably sold a lot more than the original, which is the opposite of how it
Definitely.
usually goes.
I think I think some of them have outsold like the number of Wii U's sold in total at this point.
Oh, for sure. Like Mario Kart 8
Mario
Deluxe,
Kart.
for sure. Yeah. So, that makes complete sense. Like, the best version of Mario Kart was on the Wii U, so just bring it over. It's really quick. They don't have to make a brand new game to have a new Mario Kart on the Switch. And so that was really convenient. I was like, bring all of these old games that really probably no one even played and make them accessible. And we're
Yeah.
getting to the point now where the GameCube is considered a retro system. And so
Oof.
I know it hurts my age as well, but like it's basically considered a retro system. Like, there are adults now that like didn't grow up with that, that like were born. Hang on, when did the
Yeah.
GameCube
GameCube's
launch?
older, or GameCube's over 20 years old now.
Yeah,
I
2001.
think
So there are adults.
I think almost, yeah, I think almost 22 years. I forget what time of the year the GameCube released.
There are people that can drink now that were born after after the GameCube.
The GameCube can drink.
The
Almost. Yeah. No, the GameCube can drink.
I'd love to have a drink with the GameCube. Just pour a beer into it. Just ruin your GameCube. But no, like it's kind of interesting in my mind. Like, this is another generation of consoles that were like similar to the Wii U. Like, this is another library of games that a lot of modern day gamers just weren't able to play.
Yeah.
Especially since the GameCube, I think, didn't really sell all that well. So this is like a lot of people's first opportunity to play Pikmin and to play the original Metroid Prime and stuff.
That's great because these games are definitely worth playing. I'd love to see them bringing more, especially some of the rarer GameCube games, like Fire Emblem, for example, would be really nice if they'd port the Path of Radiance, since that game's like $200.
Definitely. And I'm just looking up some of the apparently best GameCube games of all time. Some of these games are maybe in the remake category, like could be remade. But for the most part, a lot of them are just like modern day game design. I don't know, it's kind of hard to tell because we did just get the confirmation of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, but right now there aren't a whole lot of examples of these, like, of this new wave of like remasters, kind of like Metroid Prime, Pikmin 1 and 2, and Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon this year. Do you think that we'll see more of them in the future?
I think we could, but it's going to depend on how far out Nintendo's next console releases.
True.
But even then, they'll probably port games to that, actually.
Yeah.
You know what would be cool, but do you think they would actually do it, is Star Fox Adventures.
That is a great question. So I think it's hard to tell what Nintendo thinks about Star Fox in general.
Yeah.
Because the last Star Fox game I thought was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of people complained about it because of its usage of the gamepad. And well, they did release Star Fox 2 for the SNES Mini, which is a previously canceled game, as far as we were aware, at least.
And that was cool. I liked that game.
I think that Star Fox Adventure, if they redid some of the voice work as well, and if they gave it the Metroid Prime treatment regarding the like 3D models and everything, and also redid the voice work, and if they like really put a lot of effort into that, I could see them releasing it. I don't know. It really depends. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I'd love to see F-Zero GX. I'd love to see Wind Waker. Definitely. Paper
Twilight
Mario:
Princess.
The Thousand Year Door.
I think that the Zelda games on the GameCube are a weird case because they did release HD versions on the Wii U.
Yeah.
And I know that there is a really big push to try to get Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on the Switch. It's just hard to say whether or not they would do it. It would definitely be the HD versions. It'd be the Wii U versions of the game. Yeah,
And I wouldn't
that
mind
one's
that.
that one's a different conversation, maybe post Skyward Sword. I don't know.
True.
And regarding the remasters, like some of these other remasters for these GameCube games or potential remasters, there's Super Mario Sunshine. on the GameCube, but then that was released in the 3D All Stars collection,
Yeah.
and that unfortunately is like the worst version of the game because they like they changed like the controls, I think, or something like that, and then they also like cropped some of the cutscenes, so you literally get less cutscene than you did in the original GameCube release. So that's kind of just an unfortunate version of that game in general.
Yeah, that's terrible. Like, I know the GameCube had the dynamic triggers that are the pressure based triggers
Mm-hmm.
for spraying the water at like different flows of power.
Yeah,
And that plays into that's the core gameplay of Super Mario Sunshine. And
yeah.
since the Switch's triggers are just click based, they're not pressure sensitive, that functionality's lessened, I've heard. I haven't played the Switch version of the game. But yeah.
I know that the Switch, the Joy-Cons and the Pro controller are, but I think for some games, like I remember there's it's one of those like balancing games where you like are riding like a bike. I don't know why I'm blanking on the name. But like you're like it's pressure sensitive, so you're like figuring out how far to like lean the bike forward or backward and stuff to like gain speed. It's like a 2D side scrolling thing. And then
Are you talking about
that
Trials?
I don't know. Trials?
Okay.
What?
Trials, I think it's a Ubisoft game, but I might be wrong.
Possibly, yeah, I think. Something like this, at least.
Yeah.
There's a game like this on the Switch, if it's not the same game.
Oh, wait, were you talking about Excite Bike?
Maybe?
Or,
again, I literally don't know what...
You know what? Sorry, never mind. Just keep going.
Yeah, again, I literally don't know which game it is. But that does support the variable triggers, even though it's on the Switch, if you connect a GameCube controller to it.
Oh, that's a good point. Does 3D All-Stars support the GameCube controller?
I mean, you can plug it in and I'm sure it works, but I don't know. That's my question. Are the triggers still analog or digital?
It was patched in.
It does, yeah.
It
I just
does,
looked it
but
up
not
too.
the original like release. The vanilla release doesn't have it.
Yeah, you need the patch.
That's good, but still.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like Sunshine is one of those games that could get the Metroid Prime treatment, could get like the full remaster, even like the Pikmin treatment, and it still feel good on the Switch.
Sunshine would look beautiful in HD with all the water effects and the tropical like sunshine and the shading and stuff.
Especially if they do some stuff with the lighting, because lighting has come a long way since the GameCube. Yeah, that's one of those games that could have been great, but it was kind of before the current era of Nintendo remasters is what I want to call it. 2023 onward, I guess. I don't know, what games do you think are like, because we have 3 games coming out this year. If we were going to pick another 3 games, what do you think they would be?
What do I think they would be, or what would I want them to be? Maybe both? Okay.
Yeah.
What do I think is most likely that Nintendo would re-release? Honestly, Wind Waker. I could see them porting Wind Waker from the Wii U.
Okay. I think for that matter, Twilight Princess too.
Twilight Princess. Four Swords Adventures, just all the Zelda games.
I don't know about Four Swords Adventures.
Let's see. I'm going to try to diversify it. Maybe Fire Emblem. I can't think of a reason for why Nintendo would not want to port Fire Emblem Path of Radiance.
True.
Because the Switch has most of the early Fire Emblem games in the NSO apps currently, so they're paying attention to the series. I think the only one they're missing is the second game, and maybe the 5th game.
I wasn't thinking of Star Fox Adventures, but now that you brought up Star Fox Adventures, I think that Star Fox Adventures would be pretty sweet. Wave Race? I actually didn't realize that was considered a first party game.
Oh yeah.
Although I think that Wave Race might be one of those ones that could show its age potentially if they decide.
That's true, because it's one of the more like it has that more realistic look to it, unlike like Legend of Zelda, for example, that has like the cartoony visual styles generally.
Yeah,
except for Twilight Princess.
And I just think that the physics might age poorly.
I
think that if they decided to continue making Chibi Robo games, I think that Chibi Robo could be interesting. Because the last Chibi Robo game we got was on the 3DS. The only way that I see them making another Chibi Robo, or so the only reason I see them releasing the original Chibi Robo is if they were to do a new game to kind of build up the hype cycle for it. Basically the same reason why they did Metroid Prime. But then a lot of these other games, Super Paper Mario...
You know what? They should bring back Donkey Konga with
Donkey
motion controls.
Konga.
Let's go. It'll be Wii music all over again.
So I think that one of the reasons why it's really compelling, and something that I'm trying to factor into my decision making here, is one of the main reasons why a lot of these games are inaccessible now isn't necessarily just because of the reasons why that we came up with before, with it being technically like a retro console now and they didn't sell that many units, etc., but also because of the graphics make them a little bit more inaccessible. Like if the original Metroid Prime were to release in like a remaster or something like that, like a remaster or a remake collection or in some kind of collection. I think that there was the Wii collection or something like that back in the day. If they were to do that now, a lot of people might skip the original Metroid Prime, but because they gave it the remaster treatment, it looks and feels like a brand new game. And so I'm trying to factor that in for brand new people, for newcomers. Something that would help is the art change. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of this remaster frenzy that they're doing is really, really positive, is that it makes these games more accessible. They're not just, here's Pikmin on the Switch. You can play Pikmin. Like, no, it's a newer, better version of Pikmin on the Switch. I don't know, what do you think about that? I know that you've been kind of going through some of your back catalog of like retro games, so you might feel like they're not inaccessible, maybe. And I know that I'm the same way. Like I've been replaying a lot of old games too, and so I'm used to that. Like you and I, we're used to that. But I think that we also play these games with the original console in mind and other games of that era in mind.
You're right. I have seen kids these days. Like, I've seen, like, my neighbor's kids, for example, see an older game, and they just think it's bad just based on the fact that it doesn't look like modern graphical standards.
Yeah.
And it hurts me inside. So you are right. And that is very much not the way that I generally think about these games.
Look, Final Fantasy IX is one of the best Final Fantasy games ever made.
Yeah.
But no one's going to play Final Fantasy IX.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I think it's making them more accessible in a way. The original Metroid Prime. I don't see too many downsides to the modern remaster. I guess it's maybe saying that the original versions are worse or something, but I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a hard sell for any downsides.
Yeah, the way I think about it, increasing accessibility is always a good thing. Plus, it helps with game preservation, so that these games aren't just stuck on old GameCube discs. So now some of these games are on Switch cartridges. Now they're going to last longer, assuming Switch cartridges last longer. They're 20 years younger than GameCube discs are.
Definitely, yeah. I think that also there just being more volume of these games. Like, try finding Metroid Prime for the GameCube on eBay. You're not going to find anything for a decent price.
Another thing to consider is that sales-wise, I believe Nintendo considers the GameCube a fail generally. The GameCube didn't actually sell like the Switch has outsold the GameCube many times over at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So definitely the Switch player base is going to be much larger than the GameCube player base was.
Yeah, and there's just naturally more copies of all these games out there.
And that actually brings up another point that's related to this topic. There are plenty of people that care about older games. Yeah. And you can see the evidence with that in, I don't know if you saw, but in the past few weeks, the servers for all of the old Call of Duty games for the 360 went back online. Yeah. And the player base and the digital sales numbers for those games on the Microsoft Store exploded.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
There were like over 100,000 people playing Modern Warfare 2 just out of nowhere.
I mean, Modern Warfare 2 is like the best one. It's, in my opinion, the best Call of
That
Duty game.
that one in Black Ops for me.
Yeah, Black Ops and Black Ops 2. Man, yeah, those are some great games. So that
Yeah.
makes complete sense. But yeah, like, it's making it, especially if it is available on like the modern consoles and stuff, it makes it actually like really available. Like that makes it accessible, you know?
Yeah.
Although those games I feel could stand on their own. I remember I was working on Black Ops 3, just getting into like my dev history or whatever. And while we were working on Black Ops 3, we were doing some DLC stuff and some patchwork for like double XP weekends, like that kind of thing for Black Ops 2. And I remember how surprising it was, like playing Black Ops 3 like 10 to 12 hours a day every single day, and then going back occasionally and then playing Black Ops 2. And it was like, we used to play a game like this? This is so clunky. Like, it was very surprising to me.
Oh yeah.
Just like one game in the past would just felt completely different for some reason.
Oh yeah. I had that happen with Mortal Kombat X a few days ago after I've been playing 11 for the past 3 years.
Like, I used to play this game. Like,
yeah. Some people would have called those games peak when they came out. But I think Nintendo is sitting on a lot of money here, basically. Because if Nintendo started porting like the rest of these games, I'm sure that they would have like plenty of sales to make up for whatever it costs to port them.
mm-hmm.
So I think they should get on that.
And I would say that the main reason that they're doing it now is for promotion. Is basically just promotion work for future games. Like Metroid Prime 4 is coming out. So like they're releasing the original Metroid Prime, I think made a lot of sense. You know, kind of build up the hype cycle for when the new game launches. Pikmin 1 and 2 kind of for a similar reason. I also think that it served dual purpose for Metroid Prime because it gave the Metroid Prime 4 team kind of, since from what I understand, a lot of that team are brand new people. There wasn't a whole lot of people that worked on Prime 3 because there's been such a big gap of time in between. So they were able to make a lot of the artists and even a lot of the designers and stuff more familiar with the origins of Metroid Prime. They were able to keep that in mind for making 4, especially since, from what I understand, that game was actually complete a while ago, is what I heard. But then they're just releasing it now, later. I think that some dev or someone on that project kind of leaked the information. Like, yeah, this game was actually done a while ago, and they're just releasing it now.
And also, the current rumors suggest that Nintendo's going to be porting a straight port, not really a remaster. Maybe a light remaster of Metroid Prime 2 and 3 to the Switch still before Prime 4 comes out, which to me, that only makes sense. I would be surprised if they don't do that.
That's where a lot of the rumors are pointing. And same thing. Like, a lot of people have been pushing for, I think the remaster collection or whatever on the Wii or the Wii U, I forget, that collection to be released on the Switch. And then they just came out and they did like a really big remaster of Prime.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. So I think that the main reason why they've been doing these remasters is because they're releasing newer games in these franchises like Metroid and Pikmin. But Luigi's Mansion is kind of a harder one to pin down because Luigi's Mansion 3 just is already out.
That's true. I know that Nintendo seems to have a philosophy where they think it's redundant to release more than one of the same game series on one console, unless they're confident that duplicates will sell more. They might not feel like Luigi's Mansion is a strong enough series to release 3 games on the Switch, because we're about to get the second Luigi's Mansion game on the Switch, right?
Yeah. Well, they have all of the Pikmin games on the Switch, though.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's true. I was thinking about like how there's only Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart Live on the Switch, and those are very different game experiences, so they don't like necessarily eat each other's sales up. But I suppose Luigi's Mansion is more story-based, just like how Pikmin is a little bit more story-based. So I guess they wouldn't do that.
Right. And there's a lot of discussion right now over whether or not Pikmin 4 is a retcon or it just has a really weird storytelling style that they're going for, just kind of like abridging Pikmin's 1 through 3 in the story of Pikmin 4.
Hmm.
The intro to Pikmin 4, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Maybe it's a retcon or something, I don't know. But with Luigi's Mansion, the Mario series as a whole doesn't really. I feel like there's not really one coherent timeline. I've seen a lot of the arguments of like what the timeline could potentially be. Actually, there's a couple of
True.
designers that work at WayForward, and I always hear them talking about the Mario timeline and how like the TV
It
show could take place in between these because there's
it,
references to this. It's actually a
it
really
doesn't
really funny conversation to hear.
it doesn't need a timeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Mario is okay without a timeline.
Yeah, there doesn't have to be a coherent story. But yeah, I think that Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is harder to pin down for that reason. Like why did they release Dark Moon on the Switch? Like they remastered it too. Like I just don't. It's hard for me to see the logic there. It could also be maybe because the Mario movie came out, and so they just wanted more Mario stuff on the Switch, and
They wanted a
remastering Dark Moon.
Luigi game.
Yeah, so the one Luigi game, but then I don't know. I guess post Mario movie Luigi game, and so Dark Moon was probably easier to remaster than the original was. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to see if that was the full
You know
reason
what?
because
That is actually a good point because Dark Moon is originally a 3DS game.
yeah,
So it's gonna have higher poly models than Luigi's Mansion 1 does, and even the 3DS remaster of Luigi's Mansion 1 probably does. Although I haven't played that version. I don't know how good it looks compared to Dark Moon. But that is a good point. It's the more recent version, so it'd be a lot easier to just pretty much do a little bit of light touch-ups and put it on the Switch and have it look pretty decent.
yeah.
I didn't think about that before.
See, yeah,
Now it
I don't
makes
know.
sense to me.
See, you're buying that. That was like I don't know, maybe the only reason I could think
I'm
of, maybe.
no,
But
I'm
you're not
buying
like,
that because it's because that's a money issue there. Because then
yeah,
you have to pay developers more to remaster the first game again for the Switch. So then just do the one that's cheaper and will probably just get you the same amount of sales, right? Because all they wanted is to have a Luigi focused game out this year, right? Especially because of the Mario movie. Because then they also announced the Mario focused Mario game,
a Peach
Super Mario
game.
Bros. Wonder. I guess that's more of like a team focus, but Mario is the main character. And they also showed off the Princess Peach game,
Yeah.
clearly too early in development for it to really matter. They wouldn't even show us the title of the game.
Do you think
But
that Dark Moon would sell more than the original though?
they might just not care, honestly. They might just be like, they'll both probably sell like the same, we re-released the original for the 3DS, so that's probably gonna hurt its sales on the Switch version. So they're probably just like, they're both Luigi's Mansion. We can just release one of them on the Switch and it'll sell to the Luigi fans.
It could also be, I don't know how like what team is working on all these remasters. I think Prime was is completely separate because that was outsourced.
Yeah.
Pikmin was internal, and then I actually don't know about Dark Moon if that remaster was handled internally or not. So we could be blowing this out of proportion. These could just be like 3 instances of like these one-offs, But if it is one team that did Pikmin 1 and 2 and Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon, then I feel like that could be a sign that team could be working on future remasters as well. If that's the case, then it's more likely that we'll be seeing probably the original Luigi's Mansion and some of these other games as well.
Yeah, maybe eventually. I'm just worried that it's they're just padding out the end of the Switch's life cycle with a few more releases while they prepare their next system.
And they ran out of Wii U ports to do
and they
deluxe
ran out of Wii U ports, so they just threw in a couple of these.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think that they will? I know that we kind of figured out like which games are the most likely to be that we can see remasters of in the future,
Yeah.
or which ones that we would want to see. Do you think that next year we will see more of them though?
That's going to depend, I think, in my opinion, on when Nintendo intends to release their next console. If we're talking about a winter release, then I think we will. And personally, I could absolutely see them doing the Metroid Prime 2 and 3 thing. So that would be one more that we could see for next year. Maybe next spring is just a guess that I'm pulling out of nowhere.
I feel like
So
we
that it
would
doesn't
know.
conflict with the stuff that they've already announced for the rest of this year.
Yeah,
But if Nintendo's next system is coming out in spring, then
it is. I don't think so. Not next year.
it's
at
hard
least.
to say, in my opinion. But I think that's too early.
Yeah, we've known about basically every Nintendo console, at least the project name and stuff like that, recently. Before the like, quite a while before the console actually releases. Like we knew about the NX, like
Mhm.
way before we learned like what the Switch even was. Way
Yeah.
before the Switch actually launched. So I feel like we would know the code name and like they would have told us that they are developing a new console by now
Yeah.
if it was releasing like spring of next year,
Yeah.
especially since we're on the other half of 2023 now. So
Yeah.
I don't think that that's going to happen next year. So then I guess by that logic, that if we're both on the same page about that, then they would do some more remasters then next year at least.
Yeah.
By your logic at least.
Maybe they
Yeah.
can pull out that Wind Waker HD.
Maybe we'll finally see Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, yeah. What do you think it means? Because just talking about the video game preservation angle of it and having more versions, like not just like more access to these games, but more versions of these games that are more accessible because of the updated art and stuff. What do you think it means as far as like the best version of a game then? Because in my mind, the Metroid Prime Remaster is a better version of the original. Like, if I'm going to pick which one to play, I'm probably going to play the Switch port. But I also know that you come from an angle of when you're playing retro games, you want to play it as close to the original release as possible. Like we were talking when you were playing Final Fantasy VII, the original Final Fantasy VII, you were playing like the PS1 release of it. And I even told you, like, we're on the same Switch family plan. You could have played my Switch like port of it because all you need to do is like download it from my account. And then that would have worked. But then you wanted to play it as close to the original as possible. So what do you think it means to have like the best version of a game?
Honestly, there's a lot of factors that go into it. I think you gotta look at different elements of it. And I think the gameplay, of course, I think is probably the most important element.
For sure.
So if you do a port that doesn't retain the core gameplay elements, like we were talking about that Super Mario Sunshine one, and they fixed that, but initially the Switch version was damaged by the lack of the analog triggers. So I would say that the GameCube version is definitively the better experience, regardless of how good the game looks visually. For the Final Fantasy VII example, the reason why I preferred to play it on the PS1 is because it felt more real to me.
Okay.
And part of that is like the difference in power between the PS1 and the Switch. Seeing an older game run on the Switch doesn't impress me because it's just emulation of an older game. Like I know the Switch can run that. It's like the Switch is 20 years newer than Final Fantasy VII is. But when I play it on the PS1, it's more impressive to see. Like Final Fantasy VII was like top tier gaming for the PS1.
Yeah, definitely.
Of its era. For me, and that's like a very specifically me thing, I think. So for me, it feels more impressive to see.
But you were playing it on the PlayStation Classic, though, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And so
that's because that's the version I had access to. I was trying to not have to buy.
But like the PlayStation Classic is just an emulation box.
Yeah,
it's basically the same thing as like a Raspberry Pi or something.
Like all right, you got me there. You got me there. Okay.
Would playing it on the Switch
I don't
really be all
care
that
for the PlayStation Classic.
Okay.
I just don't. So you do have a really good point there. But at least the PlayStation Classic lets you use the its original PlayStation controller like type
Yeah,
setup.
the buttons
Its
are still
recreation of the
triangle,
original
circle,
PlayStation controller.
X.
So it feels a bit
Yeah.
more in line with the original experience there.
Yeah, okay. That's an interesting point. Yeah. I think that the controller, maybe like seeing the triangle prompt or something, is
Yeah.
slightly more original in that case.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Did they change that for the Switch version?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah, it says ABXY.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool.
I mean, they weren't gonna have the logo, the little pictures of the icons on the Switch. That was not gonna fly, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I know that they had to change it.
But remasters, I think, actually Final Fantasy VII, on that note, it did have a slight graphical update in future releases with mainly the battle mechanics. Just the battle 3D models and stuff were changed slightly. So in a way, the later versions of the game are like better versions of the game because it has like the updated art and stuff. And that's kind of along the same lines of what we're talking about with remasters. Like Pikmin 2 is like, or Pikmin 1 and 2, like that's better art for the original Pikmin. But do you feel like we're losing something by not seeing that Duracell battery?
Okay, I do have something for that. Okay, so even when a game is just an HD version of itself, even ignoring like the Duracell thing, I really don't mind playing the older version because it feels more of the era. Because like I think one way I think about it is kind of like time traveling.
Okay.
I've always been fascinated by the concept of time travel. It's just like, if I could choose a superhero power, it would be time travel, for example. Experiencing a game in its original form, especially because of how I view a video game as a piece of art, I don't think that a piece of art needs to be upgraded over time. I don't find that necessary. And that's why I really care about the original experience that a game can bring me. And it's not that like I don't mind when a game has like an HD release on a later system or a remake, because I feel like that just kind of adds to the overall family of experiences that is that piece of art. And I don't know if that makes sense to you at all, but that makes sense to me.
I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah. It's like, no, I can't think of another way to explain it. So like, even if you gave me a objectively worse version of a game, I don't mind, because in my mind, I could always see myself playing the better version later on at some point in the future. And I'm just experiencing one variation of this piece of media. So an example would be like the Game Boy version of like Street Fighter 2, for example. It's obviously extremely rough, but that's kind of fun in its own way.
Okay. So you're one of those people that would definitely prefer Mario 64 DS.
Prefer? I'm one of those people that would play both the N64 and the DS version.
Yeah.
And the Switch version is optional for me.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind playing the Switch version if it's like available to me, but it's not like, that's not the version that I would seek out. Like, assuming that I don't have any copy of the game, then I would seek out the N64 version.
You see, I'm the opposite, except for when it comes to remakes, like full remakes, then I'll play both versions, like Final Fantasy VII or Snake Eater. So like, yeah. I'm gonna play like Metal Gear Solid 3, and then I'll play Delta. I am going to experience. Then that's the designer like brain in me. Like, I work in games, and so that kind of idea is really interesting to me, and I think that that's also interesting to you for a similar reason.
Yeah.
So that the designer brains in us want to play both versions of the games. At least that's for as far as remakes goes. But for remasters, like if I'm gonna play Metroid Prime, the original Metroid Prime, I'm not gonna like boot up my GameCube. I'm just gonna play it on the Switch. Like, it's better. It looks better. It's like widescreen, so I'm not gonna have like little bars on my TV. It's just easier for me, I think. And so that's
interesting because I'm gonna play the GameCube version.
Okay, well, there we go. That's where we have very opposite, I think,
but
tastes.
I will play the Switch version later. I intend to play both versions, not one after the other, probably like a couple years apart.
So there's too many games that I need to play. Like even this year, that there's so many Star Wars games that have been releasing that all look really good. I haven't even played Jedi Survivor, and I did the unboxing of the freaking collector's edition of it. I still haven't even played that game because Tears of the Kingdom came out. I'm still playing through Final Fantasy VII. I guess I don't need to be doing that, but it's a really good refresher for me, and I just love that game. But Pikmin 4, I need to play Pikmin 4. I just got Pikmin 3 Deluxe too, because that's the only Pikmin game that I haven't played. It's like there's so many games. And you know what?
I'm going to say something that I've never said before, and I will probably never say again. I'm glad that we're getting a whole bunch of crappy live service games, because I don't want to play any of them. That just gives me more time to play the classics that I actually want to play, and the modern games that are like real games, in my opinion, that I want to play.
And so if I'm going to play through a game twice, I better have a really damn good reason to do that. Like if I'm playing Metroid Prime again, just taking up more hours of my like gaming life when there's so many other games that I want to play, like I better have a really good reason for it. And Final Fantasy VII, those are like different games. Metal Gear Solid Delta, like that's a different game. And so that makes sense for me to play both of those games. But it doesn't make sense for me to play Metroid Prime and then play Metroid Prime again. I just need to like plan out my gaming schedule a little bit better. Yeah. I guess you're not worried about that.
Once I'm dead, I won't care.
You won't be on your deathbed thinking like, oh, I never got to play Pikmin 3.
I will be thinking something like that. But once I'm actually dead, it won't matter anymore. That's the way I see it.
Now that we've recovered and had ourselves a little chat, what did you think?
Leave us a comment on YouTube and like the episode.
That really helps us out.
We're also on Twitter and Instagram at the Low HP Podcast, if you want to reach out there.
And subscribe if you want to catch more of us on YouTube. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Links in the show notes as always.